my final thing that I want to talk about is some lighting stuff. This song is okay with lighting. So what I think is I think that lighting should be done before you place notes. Now, a lot of people like would hear that and go like, what? Why would I do that? Like, notes help me do lighting because lighting is tedious. And I mean, I enjoy lighting, but not everyone enjoys lighting. A lot of people don't do lighting, or they'll use light map just because they don't like lighting. But if you do lighting first, what it allows you to do is it allows you to pay more attention on the way the song feels without having notes. So when you put notes to a song, you now have a physical representation of how the song sort of feels, okay? So if you do this before placing any notes, you can kind of go in, one, not being tied down to notes and color, because that's a big thing, you know? It's like, oh, I just hit, like, I hit a blue note, I want the lights to flash blue. When realistically, that doesn't really matter that much. That's not going to throw you off, and it's not going to ruin the feeling of the song. What you can kind of think of is blue as light and red as dark. So if a song is happier, you can use more blue, or if a song is darker sounding, or, you know, like more bassy or whatever, you can use red. And that's some way that I've looked at it. Let me see, I think, so here what I did is I did the lighting first, and I did make, I don't know if I'd say it's a mistake, but I sort of decided to make notes based on the lighting, which is the reverse effect. Now, if you can stay away from doing that, that's great, but in this scenario, I would say it didn't matter too much, but if you kind of just take a second to look at the lighting and how it kind of works. So, here. So one thing that I did with this is that I did all the outdoor lights. I didn't do any inner lights or any like whatever. So what this does is it lights up the entire stage. So with the first beats, which are pretty bassy beats, like they are pretty heavy, I made so the entire environment is lighting up. And it kind of gives each note a more of a purpose, if that makes sense. Because if I were to do just like one of the lasers or whatever for each side, and that was the only thing lighting up, it's, I guess, just less. And I would say even to like make this even more so, is there's the, I think it's back top lasers. Let me see if this is it. So yeah, so that's the laser that in the editor it looks a lot different, but in game it's basically the back smoke light. And so if you just turn that on for each beat, like that would be really good, because then you are entirely lighting up like the majority of the big lights. And then using like rings and stuff, like if you look here, I did it for this guy's voice, you know, because he like does this tongue roll thing and it's kind of like cool. And I do that again here, and then but then I go like for this, so that horn noise, I did it for that, and that was also a zoom. And then I believe again, yeah, so you have all these things that you can kind of attribute lighting to. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to focus again more on how the song felt than the notes. Because if you look here, like there's 3 red notes, but that's not what I have. What I have is it's alternating every time the guy makes a sound. So you know, it's matching up with him really well. And then when it kind of gets to build up a little bit more, it gets a little bit more complex. But it is repetitive, and that's fine, because it's not too complex. But then I get to the point where I want the lighting to kind of be important again. So what I do is it's so what I did is I took it and then I added this effect, which was different than the rest, and then I turn off all the lights. You turn off all the lights, and now everything's gone. And then once they hit a note, they're gonna feel like they did that, and also making, you know, the laser speed and everything much better. That's a good way to kind of go about it. And then you know, and I'll show you this as well. You can alternate between colors and whatever, but, and it is kind of repetitive, but here, I'll just show this. When the whistle go. So of course you could, so I have notes placed to the, like, I don't know, like snake charmer type sound, whatever you'd call that. So, but I don't have lights, and that's like fine. You can play the song and you're totally not like phased by the fact that there's no lighting. You could have the lighting change or turn off and all that crazy stuff for every single like note, but it's not always necessary if you want to emphasize these bigger parts. And then it gets to a little part where it's kind of fast, so I decide to just kind of alternate lights really fast, and you'll see that here. And then what I do is I focus a lot more on the turning and the zooming, as you can see, and I focus on one solid color per beat. So it was red, and then it goes to blue, and then I want to focus back on red, and then blue. And so what you're doing is you're just kind of going through, and you can see that the circle is just like freaking out. But that, at this point, is to emphasize the snake charmer type sound. Anyway, so that's kind of a sort of an analysis on lighting, and how I think it could be done. And I know a lot of people struggle with it, so I wanted to kind of give my input on how I think you can make lighting effective and all that. And then, yeah, so then up here you can see I turn off the lights again as it goes. And then what I do is I start small again. So it's just one thing, and then again it builds up. But it is a little bit different than before. There are more notes just in general, and then you can see here. So on the first one, I emphasize that note by turning everything off. Now that sounds a little weird, but it does work when you play the song. So you probably just have to play it, and there's also no effects, like no spinning, no zooming, nothing. So you go. And so there I focus on two solid colors, I focus on solid colors, and then I switch to mixing them. So it goes from blue so that's sort of my thinking on lighting, and hopefully that helps. I am on Discord, and if people want help making lighting, I am always like down to give help or to like do it for you sometimes. If as long as it's not like, you know, an 8-minute song or whatever. I'm usually down to help people out with lighting. And as well, also, like if your program or something is struggling with barriers, or if your computer doesn't let you make barriers right, seriously, like message me and I will make barriers correct, just because I know at least I can. But that's something that it's probably one of my biggest like pet peeves in a song, is when you can't make barriers right, because it, you know, you've seen people like put their sabers in the barriers to like, I don't know, mess around, and it's just like kind of fun. Having messed up barriers means that that's less of like, there's not an opportunity to do that always, because your barriers could, you know, cause your controllers to bug out. And again, it is a Beat Saber glitch, but it doesn't mean that, you know, if you can avoid it, that that you shouldn't try to avoid it. But anyway, I want to do one more example of a song that has really good lighting, but is also really complex. So there's a guy, his name is Orchan. If you're on this Discord, you've probably seen him, and you may have played his song Be Alright. But it's Be Alright by Stonebank, and as you can see right here, he's using a lot of off switches, which are the gray blocks. But it's really creative, and he's focusing a lot more on song than notes. So if I can just play it for a second. So that whole intro is like pretty hectic, but then at the end he fades everything out, and then he focuses on, I believe it's the lyrics. So let's just take a look.
Don't look back. I know you feel like you're losing track.
Also, something that he does that I think is really good, and I've actually done this in my Born to Be Yours track, is when she sings something and sort of is left off with more of a sustained note, you know, instead of stopping hard with whatever she's saying, it's sort of extended. He uses fade. He doesn't just turn the lights off. So if you listen,
I know you feel
the light sort of goes with her just because it's fading out with her when she says feel, you know, and that's, in my opinion, that's really cool, and it happens multiple times.
like you're losing track. I know your heart bleeds. Don't lose your.
And actually, that's something interesting that I didn't catch before, is he just puts lights to the S, the plural sound of bleed, which is interesting, but I think it's fine because it's pronounced enough.
Bleeds. Don't lose your mind. Just let it be, let it be. Know you're dying inside.
Now, also, notice how it's only blue. He's only using blue, and I think that is important because the song, the message it's giving is more positive, I guess. You know, it's like Be Alright. It's pretty positive. And it's more of a light type thing. It's not really dark, and it's not, you know, a lot of people associate red with evil, you know, like with in Star Wars, like the Sith, you know. It's nothing bad. It's all pretty good. And so I think making so it's only blue was a good choice for that reason. But maybe he didn't intend it for that, but that's just how I kind of interpret it.
Don't lose your mind. Just let it be, let it be. Know you're dying inside.
And then here we'll get to see kind of when he focuses more on the actual like notes and like beats of the song. So
I know it gets harder.
and see, even here he's focusing entirely on the notes. He does not do anything to her voice, but the reason for that is because that there are so many instances where they both line up that you don't need to. Like a lot of this red goes to her voice anyway, just because of how the song works. So you don't have to like put in blue to make sure that, you know, you're focusing on the voice. And especially if you want the majority of the scene to be red, you have to use up spaces. So
I know it gets harder. Days get longer. But close your eyes. It's gonna be alright. I know.
and then if you notice what he uses to spin, like notice the note that it spins on.
Know it gets harder. And days get longer. But close your eyes. It's gonna.
And so what he did there is, I think he did, let's see, one. Yeah, so he does a spin every 8 notes, and that's pretty common. That's just like a pretty good standard to go by. But even then, I think, which one was
Close
it?
your eyes. It's gonna be alright.
Yeah, so right there, I mean, maybe he got lucky, but it just happened to line up on that like clap, which is pretty good.
It's gonna be alright.
Because it's a very background noise that only happens like that once, and then that's just a good way to kind of pay attention to it. But then we shift way back, and you'll kind of see how that changes.
It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright.
And so with that, you get, in my opinion, those notes or the sound is a lot, I guess, happier sounding than the rest. So like this
It's gonna be
is very like kind of dull and in the back, but then this is like very loud and in your face sort of, and it's more of a, I guess, pump up sort of than it is more of a like a breather like this is. So it goes into that, and that's great. And then it's cool because if you look, he's changing his speed. So that's the laser speed. It goes from 2 to 0. So what he's doing is it's not even really that fast, but it's faster, and then it goes still, and then it goes on 2 speed, then to 0, which is still. And it does that a bunch. And if you kind of look and see how that actually affects them. So what he did though is he had those laser notes on fade. So they're fast for just a little bit, but then they fade out, and then they are still and they fade, which kind of causes them to act as almost two different things, because at one time they're a laser show and at the other they're just more lights. I plan on making more tutorials soon. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys again with a different tutorial, and have a good day. Peace.